Warning to viewers and fans, the following breakdown contains spoilers from the recent episode of 90 Day, The Single Life, titled The Art of the Situationship. If you haven't watched the episode yet and want to go in blind, this is your moment to pause, but if you're ready for the full breakdown, the drama, and the uncomfortable truths, let's get into it. 4 years, 90 Day. The Single Life has served as something of a redemption platform for familiar faces from the 90 Day Fiance universe. It's supposed to be the show where former couples move on, rediscover themselves, and finally prove that they can grow beyond the messy relationships that made them famous. In many cases, the format has worked. Fans have watched cast members find confidence, independence, and sometimes even true love. But this latest season feels different, and not in a good way. Instead of redemption arcs and personal growth, viewers are watching some of the franchise's most controversial stars fall back into old patterns. Two names stand out more than anyone else so far: Colt Johnson and Gino Palazzolo. Both men entered this season with an opportunity to reshape their public image. Instead, they seem to be reinforcing everything fans have criticized about them. 4 years from awkward encounters to questionable decisions and emotional immaturity, this season is raising a serious question among viewers. Is The Single Life actually helping Colt and Gino at all? Or is it exposing deeper issues that they haven't addressed? Let's break it all down to understand why this season feels so disappointing for these two cast members. It's important to remember what The Single Life is supposed to represent. Traditionally, the show gives former 90 Day fiancés personalities a clean slate. After messy breakups and dramatic marriages, the spin-off offers a chance to start fresh. Cast members date new people, reflect on past mistakes, and ideally show personal growth. Fans tune in hoping to see evolution. They want to believe that the chaos of previous seasons taught these stars something meaningful. But with Colt and Gino, that evolution feels almost non-existent. Let's start with Colt Johnson. Colt has always been one of the most polarizing figures in the franchise. From his explosive relationship with Larissa to his complicated dynamic with Vanessa and his famously close bond with his mother Debbie, Colt's storyline has never been simple. Over the years, he has been criticized for emotional manipulation, poor communication, and an apparent inability to learn from past mistakes. When viewers heard he would appear again, many hoped this would be a new chapter. Perhaps Colt would present himself as more mature, more self-aware, and finally ready to break old patterns instead. The opposite seems to be happening. What makes Colt's presence this season particularly confusing is the fact that he's already in a committed relationship with Courtney. That alone has left fans scratching their heads. If The Single Life is about people navigating the dating world after breakups, why is someone in a committed relationship part of the cast at all? This contradiction immediately undermines the authenticity of his storyline. Viewers are left wondering whether his appearance is genuine or simply a way to stay relevant within the franchise. It also raises questions about whether Colt is truly focused on personal growth or just continuing the same cycle of reality TV exposure without meaningful change. In the latest episode, these concerns only intensified, rather than demonstrating emotional maturity or clear direction. Colt appeared uncertain and inconsistent. His interactions lacked the confidence and clarity that fans hoped to see from someone who has spent years navigating public relationships and breakups, instead of showing growth. Colt's behavior often feels like a repeat of earlier seasons. There's a sense that he's stuck in the same emotional patterns that defined his past relationships. For viewers who have followed his journey from the beginning, this lack of progress is frustrating. Many wanted to see a new version of Colt. What they're getting instead feels all too familiar. Now let's talk about Gino Palazzolo. Gino's journey in the 90 Day Fiancé universe has been nothing short of chaotic. His relationship with Jasmine brought intense drama, emotional confrontations, and moments that quickly went viral among fans. While some viewers sympathized with him, others criticized his behavior and communication style. Coming into this season of The Single Life, Gino had an opportunity to reset. With his past relationship behind him, this was his chance to show independence, confidence, and a stronger sense of self. Fans hoped to see him navigate the dating world with a new perspective, but so far, that hasn't happened. In the recent episode, Gino struggled to present himself as someone who has truly learned from past experiences. His interactions felt awkward and uncertain, often highlighting the same insecurities and communication issues that defined his previous relationship. Instead of demonstrating growth, he appears stuck in familiar patterns. One of the biggest issues is how both Colt and Gino continue to define themselves through their past relationships rather than moving beyond them. Every conversation, every awkward moment, and every questionable decision seems tied to unresolved emotional baggage. Rather than showing viewers who they are now, They're reminding everyone of who they used to be. That's not what fans want from The Single Life. Viewers tune in for transformation. They want to see cast members take accountability, evolve, and build healthier relationships. When that doesn't happen, the show begins to feel less like a journey of growth and more like a replay of old mistakes. The episode titled The Art of the Situationship perfectly illustrates this problem. Instead of showcasing meaningful progress, it highlights confusion, miscommunication, and emotional stagnation. For Colt and Gino, the episode serves as a reminder that simply appearing on a new season doesn't automatically mean personal development has taken place. And that's where the real disappointment lies, because both men had the opportunity to change the narrative surrounding them. They could have used this season to show maturity, self-awareness, and a willingness to grow. Instead, their storylines so far suggest that they're still navigating the same issues that made their past relationships so turbulent. For fans who have invested years in following these journeys, that realization is hard to ignore as the season continues. Viewers are left wondering whether things will improve or if this pattern will continue. Will Colt and Gino eventually demonstrate the growth that fans have been waiting for? Or will this season cement the idea that some cast members simply aren't ready for the kind of personal transformation the show is meant to highlight? Only time will tell. But if the first episodes are any indication, this season of 90 Day, The Single Life may end up doing more harm than good for Colt Johnson and Gino. Solo. And that raises an even bigger question about the future of both men within the franchise, because if this season was supposed to be their redemption story, it's not off to a strong start. And that's exactly why so many longtime viewers of the franchise are starting to feel uneasy about where this storyline is heading next. When a reality series gives its cast a second chance, audiences expect at least some level of reflection. They want to see lessons learned. They want to see growth. They want to see people evolve beyond the versions of themselves that originally caused so much controversy. But with Colt Johnson and Gino Palazzolo, the early episodes of this season are sending a very different message. Instead of showing two men who have taken time to understand their past mistakes, viewers are watching two familiar personalities fall into the same behavioral patterns that once defined them. It's almost as if time has stood still for both of them. And for a show that's supposed to focus on moving forward, that's a serious problem. Let's take a deeper look at Colt first, because his situation is perhaps the most puzzling. Colt's presence on this season has raised eyebrows from the very beginning. The concept of the single life revolves around individuals who are navigating life after a breakup or divorce. It's about rediscovering independence and exploring new romantic possibilities. But Colt entered the season already in a committed relationship with Courtney Reardans, which immediately created confusion among viewers. Why is someone who is already committed appearing on a show designed for singles? That question has echoed across social media since the season premiered. Some fans believe his inclusion is purely for entertainment value, while others think producers wanted to capitalize on his history within the franchise. Regardless of the reason, it has created a sense that Colt's storyline lacks authenticity. Authenticity is crucial in reality television, even in a heavily edited environment. Audiences want to feel that what they're watching is genuine. When something feels staged or unnecessary, it becomes difficult for viewers to stay emotionally invested. And unfortunately for Colt, his storyline so far has struggled to feel real or meaningful. In the latest episode, this disconnect becomes even more noticeable. Colt appears uncertain about his role, unsure of what he's supposed to represent this season. Is he there to show personal growth? Is he there to offer commentary on past relationships? Or is he simply there to remain part of the franchise spotlight? Without a clear purpose, his scenes begin to feel repetitive. Conversations circle around familiar themes. Old insecurities resurface. And instead of presenting a refreshed version of himself, Colt seems trapped in a cycle that fans have already seen play out multiple times before. For viewers who once rooted for his redemption, this is deeply disappointing. Many hoped that time away from the spotlight would have allowed him to reflect and mature. They wanted to see someone who understood the mistakes of the past and was actively working to become better instead. What they're seeing feels like more of the same. Then there's Gino, whose journey this season carries a different kind of frustration. While Colt's storyline feels unnecessary, Gino's feels like a missed opportunity. After everything he went through in his relationship with Jasmine, this was his chance to redefine himself. He had the platform, he had the audience, he had the opportunity to show that he had grown from the emotional chaos of his past, but so far, that transformation hasn't materialized in the art of the situationship. Gino's interactions highlight a persistent lack of confidence and clarity. Rather than presenting himself as someone ready to move forward, he often seems stuck in the shadow of his previous relationship. Conversations carry the weight of unresolved emotions. His approach to dating feels hesitant and uncertain, and instead of demonstrating newfound independence, he appears unsure of who he is outside of his past. Romantic identity. This is where the disappointment really sets in for fans. Viewers wanted to see Gino reclaim his narrative. They wanted to see him step into a new phase of life with confidence and self-awareness. Instead, they're watching someone who still seems defined by the same insecurities that once caused so much tension on screen. It's not that audiences expect perfection. Reality TV thrives on imperfection. What viewers want is progress. They want to see effort. They want to see self-reflection. They want to see genuine attempts at change. So far, that progress feels minimal for both Colt and Gino. Another issue that makes this season feel particularly challenging is the way their storylines intersect with the broader theme of the show. The single life is supposed to highlight personal journeys. Each cast member is meant to represent a different path toward healing and growth. When some participants clearly demonstrate change while others remain stagnant, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. For example, other cast members this season are actively working on themselves. They're setting boundaries. They're acknowledging past mistakes. They're stepping outside their comfort zones. That makes Colt and Gino's lack of visible growth stand out even more. It creates a narrative imbalance that's difficult for the show to overcome. Fans notice these differences quickly. Social media discussions reflect growing frustration. Many viewers feel that the show is unintentionally highlighting why certain cast members struggle to move forward. And that brings us to a larger conversation about reality television itself. Shows like The Single Life walk a fine line between entertainment and authenticity. Producers want drama because drama keeps viewers engaged, but they also need believable character arcs to maintain long-term interest. When a cast member's storyline feels repetitive or stagnant, it risks losing the audience's attention. That's the danger facing Colt and Gino right now. If their journeys continue to feel stuck in the past, viewers may begin to question why they're still being featured so prominently. Reality TV audiences can be incredibly loyal, but they also crave evolution. They want to feel like the time they invest in following these stories leads somewhere meaningful. Without that sense of progression, even the most dramatic moments start to lose impact. As this season continues to unfold, the pressure is mounting. Both Colt and Gino have time to shift the narrative. They still have opportunities to demonstrate growth, take accountability, and show viewers a different side of themselves. But those opportunities won't last forever. Each episode shapes public perception. Each interaction either reinforces old impressions or creates new ones. So far, the balance is tipping in the wrong direction. Viewers aren't just watching for entertainment anymore. They're watching to see whether real change is possible. And if that change doesn't happen soon, this season could end up reinforcing every criticism that has followed Colt and Gino throughout their time in the franchise. The question now isn't just whether this season is helping them, it's whether it's quietly making things worse. Because, in reality television, perception is everything, and once an audience decides that someone hasn't grown, it becomes incredibly difficult to change that narrative. That reality is starting to settle in for both Colt Johnson and Gino Palazzolo as this season continues to unfold. What makes their situation particularly complicated is the fact that they aren't newcomers to the franchise. They've been part of the Joshua Day Fiance universe for years. Viewers already know their histories, their relationship patterns, and the controversies that have followed them. This long history can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, familiarity keeps them relevant. Fans recognize their names, remember their most dramatic moments, and remain curious about what they're doing now. On the other hand, that same familiarity creates expectations. When audiences have watched someone make the same mistakes repeatedly, patience starts to wear thin. Each new season becomes less about curiosity and more about accountability. That's exactly where Colt and Gino find themselves right now. For Colt, the issue goes beyond simply appearing on the show while in a committed relationship. It's about how he presents himself on screen. Over the years, viewers have criticized him for struggling with communication, emotional transparency, and consistency. Many hoped that time away from intense public scrutiny would lead to personal reflection. They wanted to see someone who had taken responsibility for past behavior and made meaningful changes. But the version of Colt that's appearing this season doesn't feel significantly different from the one audiences met years ago. His conversations often circle back to familiar insecurities. His demeanor still carries the same awkward defensiveness that once created tension in his previous relationships. Even when he attempts humor or self-awareness, it sometimes feels surface level rather than deeply genuine. This creates a disconnect between what viewers hoped to see and what they're actually seeing. Instead of witnessing a confident individual who has grown from past experiences, Audiences are watching someone who still appears uncertain about his emotional direction. That uncertainty might be relatable in real life, but in the context of a reality show centered on personal growth, it becomes frustrating. Gino's situation is different, but equally challenging. After his dramatic relationship with Jasmine, many believed that Gino would emerge from the experience with a stronger sense of self. His previous storyline was filled with emotional highs and lows, intense arguments, and moments that exposed deep insecurities. Coming out of that environment, viewers expected a period of reflection and transformation. This season was supposed to be that transformation. Instead, Gino often appears hesitant and unsure, as though he's still carrying the emotional weight of his past. His approach to new connections feels cautious to the point of stagnation. Rather than embracing the opportunity to start fresh, he sometimes seems stuck in a cycle of overthinking and self-doubt. While vulnerability can make for compelling television, a lack of forward movement can quickly become repetitive. The problem isn't that Gino is imperfect. The problem is that audiences aren't seeing clear signs of progress. In reality television, growth doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be subtle. It can be gradual, but it needs to be visible. Viewers need to feel that the people they're watching are learning from their experiences and making conscious efforts to evolve. So far, that evolution feels limited for both men. Another layer to this issue is the way editing and production choices shape the narrative. Reality TV is never purely objective. Producers select scenes, craft story arcs, and highlight specific moments to create a cohesive storyline. If Colt and Gino are being portrayed in ways that emphasize awkwardness or emotional stagnation, it raises questions about whether those are the only moments being captured, or simply the ones chosen for broadcast. However, regardless of editing, perception becomes reality for viewers. What audiences see is what they judge, and right now, what they're seeing isn't particularly flattering. Online discussions about the season reflect a growing sense of disappointment. Fans who once defended Colt and Gino are beginning to express frustration. Some viewers feel that both men are missing a valuable opportunity to redefine themselves. Others believe that the show itself may be unintentionally reinforcing negative perceptions rather than helping cast members grow beyond them. This raises an interesting question about the responsibility of reality television. Should shows like The Single Life actively support personal growth for their participants, or is their primary goal simply to entertain? Ideally, it should be a balance of both. Drama keeps audiences engaged, but genuine character development keeps them invested. When that balance tips too far toward repetitive drama without meaningful progression, the entire premise of a redemption-based show begins to feel questionable for Colt and Gino. The stakes are higher than they might initially appear. Their reputations within the franchise are being shaped in real time. Each episode contributes to a larger narrative about who they are and whether they've changed. If this season continues to portray them as stuck in old patterns, it could solidify public perception in ways that are difficult to reverse. At the same time, there's still room for a shift. Reality TV seasons are long, and storylines can evolve. It's possible that upcoming episodes will reveal moments of introspection, growth, or unexpected change. Both men have the chance to surprise viewers, to challenge assumptions, and to present sides of themselves that haven't been fully explored yet. But that change needs to happen soon, because audiences are already forming opinions, and once those opinions settle, they tend to stick. What makes this situation particularly compelling is that it reflects a broader theme. Within the Joshua Fiance universe, many cast members struggle to break free from the identities they formed during their earliest appearances. The very traits that made them memorable also become the ones that define them. Escaping that cycle requires intentional effort and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. That's the challenge facing Colt and Gino right now. They're not just navigating new relationships or new storylines. They're navigating public perception, personal growth, and the expectations of an audience that has watched them for years. Whether they rise to that challenge or continue repeating old patterns will determine how this season is ultimately remembered. Because for now, viewers are still waiting to see whether this journey will lead to genuine transformation or simply another chapter in a story that feels all too familiar. And as the season pushes forward, that uncertainty continues to shape how audiences react to every scene involving Colt and Gino. Each new episode brings another opportunity for both men to shift the narrative, but it also increases the pressure. Reality television doesn't offer unlimited chances to redefine yourself. At some point, viewers decide who they believe you are, and changing that perception becomes an uphill battle right now. Both Colt and Gino are standing at a crossroads. Within the franchise for Colt, this moment is about more than just his current storyline. It's about the long-term impact of his presence in the 90 Day Fiance universe. Over the years, he has become one of the most recognizable faces in the franchise. But recognition alone doesn't guarantee positive reception. Fame within reality television can be doubted. It brings attention and opportunity, but it also magnifies every misstep. This season could have been a chance for Colt to reshape his identity within the franchise. Instead of being remembered primarily for past relationship drama, he could have positioned himself as someone who has grown beyond those experiences. He could have shown maturity, emotional intelligence, and a clearer sense of direction. But that transformation requires intentional effort. It requires vulnerability, and most importantly, it requires visible change. So far, that change hasn't fully materialized. Instead, many of Colt's scenes feel like echoes of earlier seasons. The same awkward pauses, the same uncertainty, the same sense that he hasn't entirely moved past the dynamics that once defined his relationships. For longtime viewers, this repetition creates a feeling of narrative fatigue. They've seen this version of Colt before, and they were hoping for something different. Gino's journey carries a different emotional tone but faces a similar challenge. After everything that unfolded in his relationship with Jasmine, audiences expected a period of reinvention. His storyline had been so intense and emotionally charged that it seemed inevitable he would emerge with a new perspective on love and self. This season was supposed to showcase that evolution. It was supposed to show a man stepping into a new phase of life with lessons learned and confidence regained. But the version of Gino appearing on screen still seems to be searching for that confidence. There are moments where he appears self-aware, moments where he acknowledges past mistakes or expresses a desire to move forward, yet those moments are often followed by hesitation and uncertainty. It creates a sense that he's caught between who he used to be and who he wants to become. While that internal struggle can be relatable, it doesn't always translate into compelling television, unless it leads to visible progress. And that's what viewers are waiting for. Progress, not perfection. Not instant transformation, just clear signs that the experiences of the past have led to meaningful personal growth. Without that progress, the narrative risks becoming stagnant. Scenes begin to feel repetitive. Conversations start to sound familiar, and the emotional impact that once made these storylines compelling begins to fade. Another factor influencing audience perception is the broader context of the season itself. Other cast members are delivering storylines filled with movement and change. They're taking risks, making difficult decisions, and confronting personal challenges head-on. That contrast makes Colt and Gino's slower emotional evolution stand out even more.